Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Cookiecast. Today on Cookiecast, it's the Darkest Timeline podcast, so there'll be stuff from the last week, which won't be the last week, it'll be probably about a month ago, and all your favourite stuff, games, movies, TV, that's if I've got around to actually doing any of those things. So yeah, let's strap in and see what we've got for you here. So here we go, this is Cookiecast, the Darkest Timeline podcast. Right. Oh, dearie me. Hello. It's me, as always. Oh, tired. I am tired today, boys and girls. First day back at work after 2 weeks off. Whew. Fun. Yeah. Up early. Just up early, out early, work all day, home early. No, that's not it, is it? No, home late. Tired. And I know what you're thinking. Are you drinking an energy drink? Are you drinking a cup of coffee? The answer is no. No, I'm not. I'm drinking a juice. And now you're thinking, maybe he's turned a corner. Maybe his New Year's resolution is to cut down the caffeine, cut down on the energy drinks, cut down on the coffee. No, I've just drank coffee all day and I've had 2 energy drinks and, probably at this point in time I don't need any more. But I am tired. So it's the new year. I keep doing this thing about dating podcasts and not dating them. I mean, I don't know if it really matters. It is the new year. Happy New Year to you. You won't get this at a time that would make any relevance. But yes, 2020. I'm expecting the delivery of my flying car with a hoverboard in the boot any day now. So that's good. 2020, the future. Doesn't somehow feel it. I mean, come on, 2020, that's the future. That date is the future. You say 2020, you think the future. And then you look outside and think, I am giving you a pre-warning here. A pre-warning? I'm giving you a warning. At a guess, this is probably going to be a long podcast. The reason for that is I've had time off, and the beauty of having time off is that you can actually do things. And by doing things, I obviously mean sit and watch movies and play computer games. And as that is a large section of this podcast, that's that. So on the list, jeebus. It looks worse than it is, but that is, it looks bad, guys. I'm not gonna lie. Let's start, shall we? It is the new year. That is the first thing on my list. New year. I've covered that it is the new year, and by the time you hear this, we'll be well and truly into the new year. The reason that I put it down was just to sort of cover New Year's Eve. So where will we be? So the last time I spoke to you guys, I was sick. Because that will be a week ago today, a couple of days before New Year, or a day before. Who knows what days are at this point in time. I was sick. I remember that. I was sick for nearly a week. And that is something, actually. I was never a believer in the energy drink. I've been through this before, I'm sure. It was never something that I believed in. They smell like medicine, and yeah, I mean, it's just. I think I've covered it before. I was sick, like real sick. So not Saturday, on the Saturday before. Got in the evening, and I was just ill. I had stomach flu, basically. My body ached. I had a banging headache. All of that, and essentially a stomach bug to go with it. So I had stomach flu. I spoke to you guys on the Monday. I was still well and truly ill at that point in time, and it was just relentless. You know, to me, a stomach bug is 48 hours. You read stuff on the internet that's like, oh, it's 72 hours. By like Wednesday, Thursday of last week, it was like, yeah, I am still ill. You know, you start at that point to start wondering, is it something else? That, you know, I sometimes talk about my age, and you know, when you get to the age that I'm at now, and you've got something wrong, and it continues, your mind starts to wander to, is this something more than, you know, is it something more? So by Wednesday, the fact that I hadn't been eating was apparently not making any difference to the stomach issue. So I had the odd meal here and there, made no difference. Come Thursday, I was like, this is ridiculous. It's beyond whatever. So I was like, do you know what? I am going to do something that is probably a really stupid idea. I am going to drink an energy drink. I had very little in my stomach at that point in time. Stuff wasn't staying in. The idea of drinking an energy drink was the dumbest idea going. I was like, it's probably going to strip my stomach lining. It's whatever. But I was kind of thinking, it's probably kill or cure at this point in time. It's either going to make things a lot worse, which would have been difficult, or it's going to sort me out. I was like, sod it, let's do this. Cracked one of those bad boys open. Had the first quarter of it quite quickly, and it took me all the way back to the first time I drank one of those energy drinks, and I was just like, holy smokes, it really is like powering up. And it's like, well, I haven't had one for a while, so my body's got used to not having them, and all of that goes with it. And then I have this huge stomach twinge, and I was like, oh wow, this definitely wasn't a good idea. Had a bit more of it, had a bit more. Got to the point where I was like, yeah, definitely need the toilet. This ain't good. But I'd drunk enough that I was like, right, best thing to do at this point in time is finish this can, go to the toilet. Which is what I did. I threw the rest of the can down my throat, ran to the toilet, used the facilities, and that was that. And over the course of the evening, the pains and the gripes and the aches and the pains that were in the stomach seemed to subside, and I didn't need to go to the toilet, and I was able to go to bed. I didn't get up in the night, and by the next day I was feeling pretty much fine. So, for everything that, and I will be the first to tell you that energy drinks are not the best thing for you. For everything that these things, who knows what is actually in them, an energy drink sorted me out. So, take from that what you will. New Year came and went. I was sick. So I today is the second time in over a week that I've left the house. The only other time I've left the house in like the last 9 days was to go and see Tom. One day to drop a card off. Other than that, I've literally been in the house because I've been sick. So that was that. New Year's Eve during the day, I finally had the opportunity to watch The Irishman. I watched just over 2.5 hours in one go. And then I spent a bit of time with the baby. And then about an hour later, I went back and I watched the last 50 minutes or so. Excuse me, here we go. So, I finally watched The Irishman. Did have to do it in 2 goes. But that's better than I thought I was going to have to do it. All in all, it's a good film. It's Scorsese at the end of the day. If you're a fan of Goodfellas, if you're a fan of Casino, if you're a fan of anything that Scorsese has done, it's going to be right in your wheelhouse. Add to that, you've got Robert De Niro, you've got Joe Pesci, you've got Al Pacino, you've got Harvey Keitel. I mean, does a cast get much better than that? You've got the fact that they're using what I could only presume is the latest in de-aging technology. I know that from watching like the making of, they've sort of said that they were using a method where they didn't have to use like dots or ping pong balls on the face or whatever. Which obviously the actors really appreciate. They just had to use particular cameras. Amazing cast, and they were all great. Really good to see Joe Pesci back doing stuff. I had heard a review of this film a little while ago that said so far through it got a little slow. I would potentially agree. You've got to bear in mind this is a 3.5 hour movie. I mentioned it to a couple of people, and you sort of have to say, oh, it's 3.5 hours. And people were just like, well, I'll probably never see that film, because who could imagine sitting down to watch a 3.5 hour film? That hasn't got Avengers written on it. For the majority of that film, it didn't feel like 3.5 hours. However, for about an hour of it, it did feel like about an hour. I often watch, not often, I've often watched long films, Wolf of Wall Street, the Avenger movies, the later ones that are a lot longer, and they just don't feel the length they are. Wolf of Wall Street's like 3 and a bit hours. There are films that you're like, oh my god, that film's like 3 hours long. I don't think I can sit through it. But in actual fact, they never feel that long, so you don't have to worry about it. And for a huge chunk of that film, it didn't feel as long as it maybe was. Unfortunately, there was a point where it did. It slows up quite a lot. Not low. It just slowed up a bit at a certain point. There was also, like, clearly for me, I'm like, oh, it's a gangster movie, it's Scorsese, and it was for a long time, but then it sort of shifted to more of this singular story. Like I often find in, like, Goodfellas and Casino and things like that, you've got, like, these little, like, satellite stories, like little stories inside of a bigger story. Like, this character's doing this with this character that's outside of that character doing that, but then it's all part of one big story. For a lot of The Irishman, that was the case. There was lots of little sort of bits going on, Joe Pesci's talking to Harvey Keitel, and then Robert De Niro comes into it, but Robert De Niro's been off doing something else. That kind of thing. But then it became just about the Jimmy Hoffa stuff. If you don't know what the film's about, maybe do a bit of research into what the film is about. If I'm honest, I didn't do as much research as I felt I maybe should have done. However, I wonder if that might have put me off ever so slightly, because I went into it for a Scorsese gangster movie, which for 2/3 of the film is what I got. And then it turned into we have a story to tell, so let's tell it. So it kind of, for me, it kind of lost a step. But all in all, it was a great film. There was great acting. There's a guy, I'm going to have to look this guy up, but there's a reason, which I'll explain. So I'll very quickly, and it shouldn't take me too long, because I will have searched for, it's right there, and that's that, and I should be able to find him very quickly. Stephen Graham. Stephen Graham is in The Irishman, and at this point in time is in absolutely everything. I've seen him in stuff for years and years and years and years and years. I bet if you go into his thing and you look at how many things, 126 titles. He was in the late that BBC adaptation of A Christmas Carol, which I only saw like a couple of episodes of. There's only 3 episodes, but I only saw 2 of them. But he was in that as Jacob Marley. He was in The Irishman. He was in Rocket Man. He was in a British TV show, Line of Duty. Literally, he is in absolutely everything at the moment, and good on him, because he's clearly been like plugging away at being, doing the acting, and it's clearly paying off, because he's literally in everything now. So good on him. The acting's fantastic. The time that it's set is great. It was a great film. That I just feel it necessary to say that there was maybe a point in that film where it lost a little bit of a step. If you like Goodfellas, Casino, and those types of movies, I'd certainly recommend it. It is 3.5 hours. Maybe break it down into 2 sittings, or sit down, turn your phone off, and watch a great movie. It's on Netflix, so it's not like you're going to have to go wandering around looking for it. It's right there. I know that I've sort of gone, I was telling you about New Year. I was supposed to be telling you about the last week. And then I've reviewed a movie. But I felt that was kind of relevant. Let's get back on track somewhat. So, New Year for me used to be one thing. Then it became something else. And now it's a bit more of a a quieter affair. Obviously, when I was younger, New Year was going out. And we would always try and find new and interesting ways to go out. You know, clubbing, and eventually, you know, it started out like clubbing had to be like the best possible club night you could go to for New Year. And then, you know, when you work out that it's an absolute nightmare to travel anywhere at New Year, you start doing stuff a bit closer to home. And it's like, where's the best place to go in town? And that's a thing. And then you realise that when they're charging you to get into pubs that you couldn't on every other day of the year just walk into, it's a ridiculous concept. So then it's, you know, a house party, and you do that for a little while, and then I don't know, nobody wants to host because, well, whatever. So then you just have a few friends round, and then basically what it becomes is number of people that I heard of, spoke to, or saw on Facebook or whatever that were staying in. Staying in's the new going out. He says, being old and a parent. But it is. You know, the majority of people would prefer to stay in. Especially at times like that. So you stay in. You stay in now, whether that's age or what. I'm sure there were still people going out. So in our house, it's a simple thing. You order food, watch a movie. Leanne's not overly bothered by the ball dropping, the actual changing from one year to the next, so she just treats it as any other day and goes to bed. So that's New Year in our house. I stopped watching the ball dropping, but I do like to see in the new year. Years gone by where I used to smoke a cigar for New Year, and things like that. Now it's just, I just like to be awake when it goes from 11:59 to 12:01. You know, I can be playing computer games or watching movies. This year it was watching movies, but that's just how I do it. So that was New Year, basically. New Year came and went. It was quiet, as a lot of people have sort of said to me. Something that something else that's come up in the last week. Everybody remembers Man vs. Food, Adam Richman. It was huge for its time. The fact that it was something that was on the Travel Channel, and it was just a guy travelling around doing monster food challenges. We as a society were obsessed with it. I know I certainly used to binge watch episodes of Man vs. Food. And he did it for so long. I think there was like 4 series of that show or something. And then for health, you know, not for health reasons, but so that he could improve his health, he stopped doing the food challenges. I know for sort of the year that followed, he lost a massive amount of weight and was in a lot of magazines and stuff for the amount of weight he'd lost. And good on him. I believe he's still doing Travel Channel stuff. So yeah, that's cool. But the food challenge is still very much a thing. There is Beard versus Food, which is a really, in my opinion, a really skinny guy with a massive beard who can eat a lot. I know he holds a variety of records for eating stuff. Obviously, with having a massive beard, he looks a bit of a mess by the end of it. So food challenges are a thing. I recently got into watching some videos. So I'll try and do this the best I can. The YouTube, I don't know if it's the YouTube channel or whatever. It's called Shut Up and Eat. I don't think I'm going to be able to pronounce the person's surname. So it's, I don't know, maybe Leah Shutkiva. She is listed as a pro eater. She is absolutely, she has a tiny waist, but she is a professional eater. I came in contact with this through, I'm a fan of Eddie Hall, former World's Strongest Man, Eddie Hall. Every now and then I watch the odd video that he does on YouTube, and one night caught him doing a challenge with this Leah to eat a chocolate orange. She holds the world record for eating a chocolate orange from a sealed box to completely eaten in 65 seconds. I don't know if you are like me, that you were like, I wonder if I could do that. And then you start playing it through your head. Well, how would I go about, getting in the box is the first challenge, and then, tap and unwrap. But the unwrapping can be a bit of a ball ache. And then, you got to try and break it into, you probably try and break it into like four, into quarters, and then try and eat like a quarter of a chocolate orange. Probably eat a quarter of a chocolate orange quite quickly. So that was my thinking. They did this challenge. Eddie Hall eats something like 5,000 calories a day, because of the amount they lifts and stuff, the amount he trains. I think on that video she did it in like a minute and 11 seconds or something, so just a little bit outside of the world record that she holds. Eddie was well over like 2.5 minutes or something. His technique was terrible, but anyway, there's actually a chocolate orange in a bag downstairs, and I keep looking at it going, I reckon I could do it. Obviously I couldn't do it, but there's that part of the brain that's like, you never know. So because of that, obviously when you watch stuff on YouTube, it links to other things. At that point in time, I didn't really know who this woman was. Turns out she's a professional eater. She does food challenges. She does them on YouTube, and that was that. Next thing, I've spent like 2 hours watching her eat a multitude of things in all these food challenges. One that I was just blown away by was this 3-foot hot dog. The record was, the female record was 12 minutes. And I think she ate it in 3.5 minutes or something. It was an insane thing to watch. Honestly, don't think she chewed it. I think she just swallowed in chunks. It was bonkers. One of the recent ones was she'd done a Parmo challenge. She's done a couple of these like big breakfast challenges. There was one that the volume of food is insane. I'm sure it took like half an hour, but she ate the lot, and she's like, only one other person has ever completed this challenge. She ate a 9-ounce steak, and the record was like 17 minutes, and she did it in like 13 minutes. It was bonkers. But I got obsessed with watching these videos. It was like, oh, I'm going to go to bed. Oh, but look, she's going to eat a steak. I'm freaking vegetarian. And that's the other thing. All of the challenges are like meat-based. But she challenged Eddie Hall to a thing of chicken wings. And again, absolutely destroyed him in that. But yeah, I just got obsessed with watching these food challenge videos. So yeah, check, if that's the sort of thing that you fancy fancy watching, give that a whirl. She's on YouTube. She has a YouTube channel, and her YouTube channel is her doing food challenges. So I was bought a book for Christmas. It might surprise some of you to hear that I can read. Not very well or very quickly, but I have the ability to read. It's one of those things. I was thinking about this the other day. In the last 2 years, I have read more books than I have read in my entire life. Think how depressing that is. And that's one of those, because you're hoping at this point in time that in the last couple of years I've read like hundreds of books, which isn't true, but I have read a lot of books in the last couple of years. A lot for me, a man who has read more in the last 2 years than in his entire life. There you go. Me and reading don't get on, or didn't get on. Obviously, I'm severely dyslexic, and reading is, for want of a better way of putting it, quite difficult for me. So, not up there at the top of my list of things to do until recently. I'm currently reading 3 books. One I've been on a bit of a break from. I was working my way through the Harry Potter books because I'd never read them before, and I got into reading. So I was like, well, I kind of have to have read those. I think I'm on the 4th one. Got halfway through it and was like, I'm going to come back to this. I feel a little Harry Potter fatigued. I am also reading one of the Sandman Slim books, which is just a series of books. Kind of good. There's like 10 books in that series. Might be on the 7th or the 8th one. Don't know. And then I'm reading the book I got for Christmas. The book I got for Christmas was... I wonder if I can just quickly tell you the actual name of this book. Life of the Party, Stories of a Perpetual Man-Child by Bert Kreischer. It's hardback, if that makes any difference to you. So I got that for Christmas. I was like, cool, a book. And then I opened it, I was like, oh, even cooler. It's a Bert Kreischer book. Found out from the book, and it's one of those, at this point in time, I'm like, how did I not know this? Found out from the book that the film National Lampoon's Van Wilder was based on Bert Kreischer's life when he was at university. In the book, he says it is so loosely based on his life, it might as well not be, but it is. I even did a search this evening for the Wikipedia page for Van Wilder, and it's like, Van Wilder is a film, National Lampoon, directed by this person, written by these people, and based on the life of party animal Bert Kreischer. It's like, wow, that's cool. So far I've read not quite a quarter of it, like a fifth maybe. Basically I'm just reading a chapter a night, and I've been for the last few nights. It is exceptional. Obviously, like the year of 2019 for me was like the year of Bert Kreischer. I went mad on his stand-up. I listened to podcasts with him on. I follow him on Instagram and stuff. I thoroughly enjoy it. He spends a lot of time with people that I enjoy listening to anyway. He does a podcast with Bill Burr, he does a podcast with Tom Sawyer, he does podcasts with Joe Rogan. I mean, these are all of my heavy hitters. And he's like my number one sort of stand-up, or like a joint stand-up with all of those other guys. He did a world tour. I missed it. We've been through that. The pain is very real. However, he has immediately started another tour, and it is being listed as a world tour, so fingers crossed on that one. But the book is great. There is a time in my life where if I'd have opened a Christmas present that was a book, I'd have put it in a pile with pants and socks, because it was about as much use to me as pants and socks. Now, if I open a present that is pants, well, boxer shorts, socks, or a book, I'm like, these are great gifts. It's interesting how life changes. Age, getting old. So yeah, I'm reading a book. But you never thought on this podcast you'd hear me talking about reading a book. That is not why you're here, I know. We have to cover something, ladies and gentlemen. Something I am not proud of. And I know a few of you right now are thinking, well, that could be literally anything. We need to talk about screen time. I had my screen time notification. Was it yesterday? It was disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. No surprises, it's gone up. The phone, it's bad. I know it's bad at the moment. It's really bad. It's just, yeah, it's fairly constant. I need to do something to get off it. I mean, you know, there are times that I'm actually using it for, you know, I'm using my powers for good. There are times I'm using it to read. I signed up to a trial for Amazon Music today, where I then proceeded to download a load of comedy albums. I use it for the podcast stuff. I do use it for, you know, checking my emails, but then when was the last time I had an email that I actually needed to read? There are things I need it for, but those things are very small. And when I got that report, it was like, oh, that's a hell of a lot of time on my phone. I need to do something to stop using it. Man, it's bad. I hate it. I really hate it. Clearly, by the amount I use it. Yeah, I gotta do something about it. So, let's get back to... I've watched no television stuff, which might tip you off to something later in the podcast. I've had The Witcher TV program recommended to me. It's not like I needed it recommended to me. Like Sam was like, "Oh, you watched The Witcher?" I was like, "No." He's like, "You sure it's good?" I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna watch it. I just basically it was one of those. I wasn't in the mood for that now. So I haven't started it or been watching it. But it's definitely on my I will watch list. I don't really know what I'm in the mood for at the moment. I need something like short. I think that was so yeah, I haven't watched any TV stuff, so I can't tell you about TV. What I can tell you about is movies, and boy, can I tell you about movies. So jumping all the way back to New Year, during the day I watched The Irishman. That was not the only film I watched that day. I watched a multitude of films. In the evening, I watched the film Brightburn, Now, I know that I've mentioned Brightburn before. For anybody who's not listened, Brightburn is a what if. So what if Superman, when he was a child, rather than being the good guy, was actually the bad guy? And it's done from the perspective of whilst that character is a child. It's not Clark Kent. It's rather than it being like CC Clark Kent, it's BB. And it isn't Superman, but this child is super strong, can fly, is super fast, and has laser vision. They came to Earth in a spacecraft and crashed in the woods and were found by a family that couldn't have children. You're getting me here. So although it's not Superman in name, it is. But whereas Clark Kent was raised to be good, the parents of this child have raised him to be good, but at a certain point something goes wrong and he starts realizing that he is super strong and he is invulnerable and he's got laser eyes and he can fly, and there's nothing to say that somebody who one day wakes up and has all these abilities is definitely going to be the good guy. And the premise of this story, this film, is that that's what happens. He isn't the good guy. He is very much the bad guy. And it's a horror movie. People die. It's got great special effects. It's super gory in places. It's got a good cast. Elizabeth Banks plays the mum in it. The dad has been in something. I can't think what it was. It's got Badger from Breaking Bad. He plays the kid's uncle. Really, it was a good film. I love to see a different take on stuff. The kid was super creepy. It was just, in some ways, it was refreshing, even though it's a story we've seen a million times before. And that's it. It's a story we've seen and we know and we've heard a million times before, done differently. So that's probably what made it fresh and new and whatever. I enjoyed it. I know I had a conversation with somebody else who had seen it. They didn't overly enjoy it. So I don't know. Their sort of take on it was that it went too quickly from he was a good kid to a bad kid. I felt the pacing was fine. Literally anybody I mention this film to, their response is, I've never heard of it. So the film is called Brightburn. It's available on Blu-ray. I didn't go to the cinema to see it. It tries to do the thing that I don't like, which sort of early on it tries to do quite a lot of jump scares, and I'm not down with that. But then it sort of lets those go for the more creepy aspect, which I'm fine with. So Brightburn, I enjoyed. Like I say, after that, Liam went off to bed, so I was alone. It was a kind of, normally in a situation like that, I would sit down and play a game, but I was just having a movie kind of. I was hungry for movies. There was stuff that I got for Christmas. Leanne said she wasn't interested in watching. One of them she'd seen and the other one she wasn't overly bothered about. So I was like, cool. Tell you what, why don't I watch those? Why don't I watch a film now? So I then watched Spider-Man Far From Home. I watched it in 4K and it was perfectly fine. Something, before I go into it, something that I didn't understand was that it said that film was released by Sony. I can only presume that is part of the deal that Sony and Marvel have signed recently. Or Sony and Disney, whatever you want to call it. But when that film started, when I watched it on 4K, it said it was released by Sony. So, who knows? Anyway, Spider-Man Far From Home was perfectly fine. It was okay. Here's the thing. I'm sort of done with the Marvel stuff now. I know, like, the stuff that's coming up, I don't really have much interest in. I said I was going to do up to this Spider-Man film. I have now seen this Spider-Man film. I feel I can happily tap out on this one. There are certain films in the Marvel phase, whatever, that I thoroughly enjoyed. Infinity War was, for a time, like a favourite film. Everybody raves about Winter Soldier. There are films that are better. There are films that are not as good. Films that as a series, I thoroughly enjoy them. You know, the first Iron Man was great. Iron Man 2 wasn't as good. Iron Man 3, again, wasn't as good. You made an Iron Man film and Iron Man wasn't in it. You know, that kind of thing. Thor, you know, the Thor movies are great. Everyone was said that the second one, Dark World, is it? That's reviewed as the worst of those Marvel films. I didn't think it was that bad. But then Ragnarok was reviewed as one of the best. I thought Ragnarok was great. So there are films that are better and there are films that are worse, and then there are films that are, you know, in the middle. So, films in the Marvel Universe that are in the middle are Black Panther. There was nothing that stood out in that film. It was just fine. I feel that it was overhyped for the wrong reasons. That film was just okay. Captain Marvel. That film was okay. It wasn't exceptional. It wasn't terrible. It was fine. Both of the Spider-Man films were perfectly fine. Tom Holland is the best incarnation of Spider-Man because he does both sides perfectly. He does Peter Parker well, he does Spider-Man well. Bang up job. Well done. But it is okay to say that film was fine. It doesn't have to be the best film ever made. I watched Spider-Man. I've got time for Jake Gyllenhaal. I was kind of like... Something that annoyed me about it was the fact that they wanted you to think one thing, but if you've ever picked up a comic book, you knew it wasn't the way that they were portraying it, so it was kind of redundant. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it, sort of thing. It was perfectly fine. It made me chuckle in places, and I enjoyed watching it. I will watch it again at some point. It was fine. And I know at this point in time, some people are thinking, well, it sounds like you didn't like it. I did. I've said it was perfectly fine. Not the best film ever made. Not the worst film ever made. A good film. At that point, when that film finished, it still hadn't ticked over into the new year. It was 11:30. I was like, you know something? I reckon I can fit another one in. Went downstairs, looked through the pile of the stuff that I had and was like, right, okay, so what else is on the list that Leanne doesn't want to see? The other thing I got for Christmas was Hobbs and Shaw. The Fast and the Furious Hobbs and Shaw, however it's worded. Hobbs and Shaw. Again, 4K, give that bad boy a whirl. It's one of those things. I own all of the Fast and the Furious films. I have time for them. Again, some are better, some are worse. I work on the principle that the Fast and the Furious film will give you exactly what you want from it. Do you want cars? Yes. Do you want dumb action? Yes. Do you want car chase, explosions? All of that sort of stuff you can get from a Fast and the Furious film. And there are times when, is that what I want from a movie? Yes, it is. I'm not going to defend it. I think they are perfectly fine. They have a place in this world. Hobbs and Shaw works on the principle that it took two of the better characters from the later films, Dwayne Johnson's character and Jason Statham's character, put them together and put them in a scenario where they had to be in a film together. My review of this film is, it was fine. End of the day, a criticism of this film was that there was cheese when there didn't need to be. It was a little bit cheesy in places, and I felt it was unnecessarily cheesy in places. Idris Elba's in it as the bad guy. He was very good as the bad guy. A minor gripe was, if you're going to tell me that Idris Elba is the bad guy and he is enhanced and he's got like bionic eyes and he's super strong and he's agile and he can fight really well and all of that, I am totally on board with that. They use science, which, you know, science is basically magic, to explain that he is a super soldier of sorts. He is all the stuff I just mentioned. I am on board with that. He has a transforming motorbike. Sorry, what? Why? Because he needs a transforming motorbike to fit the scenarios that we have put in the film. Why? That's not a thing. Oh, it's also like, it's like some kind of weird thing that he can like make it come to him with nobody riding it. Again, I can kind of get on board with that, but there's just a bit where the bike like transform, not into like a transform, like a robot. It just like compresses down so that you can go under a truck. It's like, why? Just slide the motorbike sideways under the truck like you would in any other film like this. Why does it need to transform into a smaller version of itself? As with a lot of stuff that I talk about, I imagine if you have any interest in this film, you may have either already seen it or are intending to see it. And if you have no interest in this film, you're probably not going to watch it. So I can't imagine my review is going to overly change that. It was perfectly fine. Little bit long. 2 hours, 20 minutes. A little bit long for a film like that. Let's keep it tight. A good solid 2 hours or a good solid 90 minutes. Probably all it needs. Suffered with the Bad Boys 2. This film's probably done, but let's go to a different country. That's another element that goes with these sort of films. They're almost like they're tourism adverts for different countries. A couple of nice things. Ryan Reynolds pops up and plays, that character that he plays, Ryan Reynolds. And Kevin Hart turns up. Amusing, both of them. It was fine. It was a good film. It was just a little bit too cheesy in places for my liking. Take the cheese out, it would have been even better. Definitely the kind of film to watch at that point in time. But, like I say, kicked it off at gone 11:30 and it was 2 hours, 20 minutes long. Was flagging by the end of it. So that was New Year. But wait, there's more. So, I've been working my way through these films. Another film that I got for Christmas was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now then, the day before I watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, somebody sent a message to a group that I am in saying, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, what was the point? It was rubbish. And I was like, oh, here we go. Oh, that film was rubbish. Oh, what was the point? The next day, I put Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on, and I watched it. And I'd have to agree. It felt very much like Birdman. It felt very much like it was, it was supposed to be, I think what it was supposed to be was a mixture of Birdman, Summer of Sam, and something else which I can't think of. I had this conversation the other day. It's supposed to be set at a time where, like Summer of Sam, there's a story going on whilst a famous serial killer is in operation. Obviously, in this case, that famous serial killer is Charles Manson. And it sort of frames the Manson killings. The characters are Rick Dalton, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. I mean, I used to hate Leonardo DiCaprio. I couldn't stand him. Couldn't watch films with him in. I just despised him. And then he stopped doing films like, Titanic, and started doing like good films. And then I have a lot of time for him these days. Like I say, I'll happily sit down and watch Wolf of Wall Street. Inception is amazing. He is a phenomenal actor. Brad Pitt, I don't think I can remember Brad Pitt's character's name. He plays, like, Rick Dalton's like an actor. Brad Pitt plays his stuntman. Also seems to be like his assistant as well. That's kind of that. Margot Robbie's in it. She plays Sharon Tate. A multitude of other people. Harley Quinn Smith is in it. Kevin Smith's daughter, which is cool. And a guy that when I looked him up, he was in Yoga Hosers with Harley Quinn Smith. It was actors acting, which is perfectly fine. I feel like I probably missed the point. It's one of those, I don't want to come across as uneducated. I think it was aimed at a particular audience. That audience was maybe somebody who was alive in the 1970s and lived in Los Angeles at the time. But it's supposedly Quentin Tarantino's love letter to Hollywood at a time that he remembers very well, being the 70s. There's obviously, like I say, there's the Manson killing stuff. It was... Yeah, I think I probably just missed the point on this one. It has sparked a lot of conversation since watching it. I've had multiple conversations with people since watching it. Yeah, it was very much I wasn't sure the point to it. What I will say, however, is, and I'm not going to spoil it, or I'm going to try not to spoil it. At the end of this film, there is a scene which is incredibly violent. I felt that the violence was comedy violence. One of my favourite things in the world that makes me laugh uncontrollably is comedy violence. So there was comedy violence and I started laughing and I was like, oh my God, is it not funny? But it carried on and I couldn't stop laughing and I just laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. Because one of the things I really enjoy is comedy violence. And it had comedy violence in. So I just laughed at it. And then felt bad and made me like I wasn't supposed to. I feel that I just missed the point. Tarantino can be hit and miss for me. I love a lot of his films, but there are other films that I can't stand. Jackie Brown is hands down one of the worst films I've ever seen. Django. I watched Django once, and once was enough. Inglourious Bastards. I watched once, and that was enough. But then I watched The Hateful Eight recently, and really enjoyed it. Obviously, all of his older stuff is great. So I just feel that this film just maybe just wasn't for me. I feel it does make me feel like I'm not educated enough to get the point, but I just feel it wasn't for me. It's not a film I'll be rushing to watch again, unless somebody comes to me and goes, "You completely missed the point of that film. The point was this," and I'm like, "What, man? I'm gonna have to watch it again to, that kind of situation." Unless that happens, I'm not going to be rushing to watch it anytime soon. So that was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That is not the end of the films. There is one film left, and I'm going to rush through this one because I can't imagine this is everybody's cup of tea. But for me, I've had this film since I got this film for Father's Day from my children. But it's taken me an absolute age to get around to watching it. It is the third How to Train Your Dragon film. Little known fact, one of my favourite all-time films is How to Train Your Dragon. I watched it on the plane flying to Las Vegas. I enjoyed it that much that when it finished and then started again, I watched it again. It was thoroughly enjoyable. I own it. Like I say, it is one of my favourite films. I love that film. Can't explain it. Obviously it's for kids, but it speaks to me. So then they did a second one, and I watched it, and I was like, that film is a good film. 2 for 2. Well done, DreamWorks. You are hitting it out of the park. So there was a third one. I got super excited. I just haven't got round to watching it. I was in a film watching phase, so I was like, right, now's the time to get that one watched. It is called, I can see it from here, it's How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World. Again, really enjoyable film. I was saying, find me a trilogy of films recently that has been has been good throughout. I thoroughly enjoyed all 3 of those films. I'll happily sit down and watch them again. They're just good films. They're well made. They're entertaining films. So yeah, that is kind of that. I'm not going to go over it too much. I can't imagine people are tuning in for How to Train Your Dragon 3. But I don't know, if you've got kids, sit down and watch it with them. It was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Let's talk some computer games. I got a series of computer games for Christmas, and as I've mentioned previously, absolutely raped and pillaged the VR Christmas sale. So, excuse me. Let's get on to the games. Toot sweet. Ghostbusters was not working for me. So I made the executive decision to move on, and I started playing The Outer Worlds. A game that had generally had good reviews. However, after a while I started seeing a series of reviews that were saying a game that starts out very well and then starts to lose it towards the back end. That is a very, very good review. Because that game starts out great. It's everything that you're missing in your life because Bethesda can't make a game to save their lives. It's Fallout, but it's so much better than Fallout. It's, you know, the world isn't a massive sprawling open world. It's done over different planets, but the first bit you're on, it's, you know, things are close. You can walk there, you can run there, you'll get there in a few minutes. Not even that, in a few seconds. It's all doable. I was loving it. And then it turned on me. And this is why I don't review games too soon. Games do this all too often. So what started out as this amazing RPG, this first-person shooter, running around, doing stuff for this guy, shooting things, all of that, turned into one long loading screen. Because that's all it was. It was, go here, okay, I'm there. Go in, okay, I'm going in. Alright, it's loading. Alright, it's taking a really long time to load. Cool, right, have a conversation with this guy. Okay, now go back. But that means I've got to go through that door. That means that I have to load. Wonderful. It also became busy work the game. Go here, talk to this guy. Go back and talk to the first guy. Cool, you've completed that mission. You only had to go through 6 loading screens and it spent 90% of your time watching a loading screen and 10% of the time running between the places. I've never had my opinion changed so much. I don't think that's true, actually. But my opinion changed so dramatically about that game. It started out like, yes, this is what games are missing. It's compact. It's great. You know, the weapons are good, and all of that, and that remained true. But then it was just this long ass loading screen for the rest of the game. It was, oh, it's loading, is it? Cool. Oh, I'm outside. Right, I got to go over here. I've got to go into this building. Oh, now it's loading. Cool. Alright, well, maybe if I fast travel so I don't have to deal with all of this shit in between, that make it quick. Oh, no, because if you fast travel, it loads. Alright. Oh, I'm there now. Oh, but I'm outside the door. So I've got to go through. All right, it's loading again. That's all it became. It just became loading screen after loading screen after loading screen. And it takes a really long time to load that game. Such a disappointment because it started out fantastic and it just wasted all of its potential. If you have an issue with loading, if it takes a long time for your game to load, and you know that, then leave people outside for as long as possible. Poor execution on that one, I'm afraid. And part of me thinks that it was done on purpose, just to drag out the game. Such a shame. So, I played it and I finished it, which there were a couple of points where that wasn't going to happen because I just couldn't be doing with the excessive loading. Because I've played it and finished it, I moved on to Greedfall. I've only been playing that a couple of days. Again, we're in the world of the RPG. This is pirates set in a fantasy world. So what I mean by that is you look like a pirate, but you also can use magic to fight, and you fight fantasy creatures. I fought this giant thing that was, it looked like it was like a walking tree sort of thing. It is basically RPG the game. The world is big and open. It's like they basically went to the people that made Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and they were like, you're not using the world that you created anymore, are you? Because you're done with that game. And they were like, yeah, all right, can we have it so that we can make our game? And they were like, yeah, cool. because it's very, Victorian buildings and narrow sort of streets and stuff like that. But like I say, it's pirates in a fantasy world. There's a lot of talking. Generally, the first thing I do in an RPG is find how to skip conversations. So as it is, I have absolutely no idea what's going on in this game because I don't listen to any of the conversations because the conversations are long and boring. But that's RPGs. That is the RPG game. I'm yet to come across an RPG where I actually sit and listen to them talk. I just skip through. Literally, the conversation goes. It's been good. It's been fine. It's super rough around the edges to start with, and I was like, "Ooh, it looks real ropey." But as with every RPG, you start playing, a couple of hours in, you don't care what it looks like. You just care about the quest and the go here and the do that. Struggled with some early quests. It was like, oh, make a sleeping potion. I don't have the ability to make a sleeping potion. Okay, well, gather the ingredients. Oh, I've got the ingredients. I don't have the ability to make a sleeping potion. I need an ability point to do that. I can't do that, so I can't progress. In the end, I had to leave it. It did sort of sort itself out, but I had to leave that quest because I didn't have the ability needed. Fighting's good. I've gone with like a magic character. I generally do the magic when it's like an RPG like that. So my character's sort of more of a ranged character. It's cool. It's fine. It's perfectly playable. There was a point where I was like, oh, this is a bit much, especially after having just played an RPG. But another sort of hour or so later, I was like, yeah, I can play this for a while. So I'll play that whilst ever it lets me. It's good. VR wise, I tried to play some VR when I was sick. That was a really bad idea. So there's not been a lot of VR playing. Although the last couple of days I've got back to it. Bought some accessories for the VR. So there was like this pack. There's like a silicone face plate and some hand grips. I got some like things where you can put them so that they're straps across the back of your hands so that you don't drop the controllers. But they blocked some of the buttons, so I took them off. And I've just got these rubber hand grips. The silicone on the upside makes it easier to clean and more hygienic. On the downside, it apparently makes it warmer to play, which for something that was already had the ability to make you quite sweaty, it's really not great. I got a boxing game, which is Thrill of the Fight. I tried to play that yesterday and the sweat was running down my face, and I mean like a waterfall. So I had like 2 goes on that. I had to turn that off. Played a bit of Beat Saber, played a bit of Pistol Whip, played a bit of Red Matter. So yeah, I think I need to look a little bit further into some of these accessories for the Quest. Originally, I was going to get like a faux leather, like the PVC kind of face plate. Or kind of wish I'd have done that now because I think that's probably going to be the best way to go. But I didn't, so I'm going to have to try and get some money together and try and do that. And again, I want to try and do something better with the hand grip stuff for the controllers, because I had to change the batteries on the controls yesterday and it was an absolute nightmare with these rubber grips. So that's kind of that really. Sorry for the monster that it was. I presume it's quite long. Well, you can guarantee I'll check and it'll be shorter than any other podcast I've done, but Lastly on my list is usually the gym. I mean, by this point in time, you've worked it out. I was poorly sick until 3 days ago, and by that point I was like, I just need to recover. Fully intend to go to the gym today, get back to getting back, if you know what I mean. But no surprises, whilst being sick, I haven't been to the gym. I am going to go back to the gym today. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the podcast. Thank you for sticking with me, if you stuck with me. And until next week, I'm going to say bye. And I will see you then.
So there you go. What do you think of that? Another one done. Another week gone. YouTube watchers, make sure you're subscribing to the channel, liking and sharing and commenting. Listeners, if you've not been to the YouTube channel, jump over there and have a look. Some of them aren't video, but are interesting to see. Make an effort and put a picture on and stuff. But there are videos over on the YouTube channel, so jump over and have a look. Everybody can go to the Cookiecast.com, check us out there, and send us some form of love. So yeah, there we go. We're done for now. Until next week, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then. Bye.